What's going on, ladies and gentlemen? Dogon SS and JV Wins. We are back with another video on the Conscious Approach channel on YouTube. Major shouts out to the Conscious Approach community and everybody who keeps supporting our little channel here on YouTube by subscribing to the channel, hitting that like button, and leaving those comments. We certainly appreciate you as we continue to kick out this logical content. Before we get into tonight's video, did want to preface, as always, by saying we are now available on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and Amazon Music. So in those places, if that's where you get like your audio fix, your podcast, check us out, stream us there. We certainly appreciate the algorithm. The algorithm plays in that regard. Just want to be any and everywhere when at all possible. So if you driving in the car, if you're at the gym, if you're at work, or otherwise in a situation in which you can't check us out on YouTube, but you can stream us, listen to us audio style, check us out in those places because we are now rocking and rolling there as well. Also, if this is your first time checking us out, definitely be sure to subscribe to the channel so that you can get the notification whenever new content is published. And if you are a follower of what we do here with our content and you either like or dislike what we do, leave a comment and let us know why. We certainly appreciate the support, and we do engage so long as the feedback is not trolling. So if you are being constructive, it doesn't matter whether you like or hate us, so long as it is constructive, we appreciate it nonetheless. But if it's stuff that doesn't make sense or you're just trolling but otherwise not really being constructive, we'll probably just ignore it. So food for thought to anybody out there who is a troll who just likes to leave comments for the heck of it. We probably won't even acknowledge the existence of it. So now, with that out of the way, man, we are going to go ahead and get right into it. First thing that we are going to discuss are comments made by Yasiin Bey, formerly known as Mos Def, rapper going back to the old school days with Talib Kweli and Black Thought. No, not Black Thought. What were they called?
Black Star.
Black Star. There you go. Black Thought's the rapper from the Roots. My bad. Black Star. Yeah. So Yasiin Bey, basically has been removed from really entertainment in general. He was big with music first, and then he was big with movies. Then he moved to Africa and decided that he was done with it all. And then something weird happened with his citizenship, and so he was just permanently in South Africa. But now I guess he's gotten a lot of that cleared away. He's been making more and more public appearances, doing fashion week things over in Europe and other weird stuff. But now he's trying to get back into music. And he announced last December that he is going to be getting back into music, doing something with, I believe, The Alchemist, which is supposed to drop sometime this year. I don't know specifically when this year, but sometime in 2025. So Mos Def Yasiin Bey, however you know him, is getting back into music. So shouts out to that because I was a fan of him as an artist with his music, either with Black Star or as a solo artist. So, but that's not what we're talking about Yasiin today, not necessarily about his personal catalog, but because he made interesting comments talking about the exploitation of the music industry. And more specifically, he talked about how you start off in the music industry very hopeful and idealistic, but over time, because of the exploitative nature of it, you become disillusioned and just eventually stop caring. And he feels some type of way about the extractive way that the music industry takes from its artists who work so hard to create what they create, but don't seem to get nearly enough of a return on their creation. And he thinks that it's shameful and he finds it to be very exploitative. So just to provide some context before we get into it, this says Yasiin Bey puts exploitative streaming services on blast. The music industry has been on the receiving end of plenty of criticism, and recently Yasiin Bey joined the conversation. The performer recently spoke with The Guardian, opening up about the disillusionment he experienced early in his career. According to him, this stripped away his excitement to make music. I was so disillusioned, he recalled. You start out with idealism and passion, and then you encounter the kind of conduct and values George Orwell called inanites. And they do this shit to everybody. It's not even personal, it's systemic. Bay continued going after streaming services, in particular, for what he sees as the gross and exploitative treatment of artists. That shit is gross. Paying people part of a penny for their music, he said. Those MFers are cold blooded, man, like Scrooge McDuck, licking his lips as he jumps into a pool of gold coins. The music industry of now makes the one I started out in seem charitable. It's completely exploitative. While Bay has his fair share of issues with the music industry, he admits that he's grateful to have the opportunity to keep making music. I'm just happy to be alive, to be able to create art and beauty, to be the best of my to the best of my ability, he explained. Like to be a human being is a miracle. We're on this spaceship planet Earth sharing this experience and it's crazy. Like who needs peyote? We're already in outer space, baby. Bay's remarks come after he announced his upcoming album with The Alchemist in December. The project is dubbed Forensics and is expected to drop sometime this year, though an official release date has yet to be announced. They previewed it with a live world premiere at La Le Trianon. La Trianon. That sounds like some highfalutin thing in Europe.
Mm-hmm,
La
mm-hmm.
Trianon in Paris in January. So there's Yasiin Bey, Mos Def, unmuting to the Guardian, talking about how exploitative the music industry is. What do you think of what he had to say?
I agree with him. I agree with him. I believe it is 100% exploitative. I never used that word, but I feel him on that. And side note, man, Most Def or Mr. Bay and Alchemist, that should be quite interesting. So I'm not gonna hold my breath. They say December. That's gonna be a 2026 project, I'm sure. But be that as it may, man, I'd definitely be interested to hear how that goes. I like that. And but yeah, man, the industry goes as the industry goes. From its inception, it was created to exploit. Um, as far back as you can go, man. The industry was stealing people's music. Somebody come out with a song, but they don't have the machine behind them. The industry would literally take that song verbatim, have their artists do their rendition of it, and get all the royalties and all the money for it. And the people that made it on the ground, they get the shaft. But then that's always been going on, and it still goes on. Believe it or not, that very practice still happens to this day. Even the Notorious Big. When it came out that the song, which what is it? Is it Juicy? I think it's Juicy. That song was pretty much lifted and shifted from somebody named Notorious Big from, I don't know if it was Tennessee or Memphis. It was some Tennessee or Memphis. It was Tennessee or some place like that. But the guy, he made the song, same beat, same flows, and the song was literally stolen from him, and it was Biggie's now. And up until Hotline Bling with your boy Drizzy Drakes, stealing the song basically from Drum, at least the cadence and other things like that. And so I say that to say that the industry is what it is. The practice of the music industry has always been the same. It's always been to pimp out, while the artists are meant to walk the stroll. And whether it's snowing outside, whether it's a category 5, they better come back with the dollars. And you're not getting anything. Bring me all the money. And like he said, I'll get you half a penny, or a percentage of a penny for all of your hard work. It's disgusting, man. And, that's why I believe the true route for any artist out there is to do it the independent way. Don't sign to any of these major labels. Be content with your show money, your merch money, You don't need to be at award shows. You don't need to be on the cover of magazines. You just need a solid fan base that supports the lifestyle you want to live. You could still have the fandom that you always wanted and desired. You can still change people's lives the way you want to, and you can really do it since there's no label heads telling you what and what not to say.
Right.
And now with the days where direct to consumer, where you can literally sell stuff off your own website, shoot and make your own videos without the necessary help of Hype Williams or anybody else that's industry gatekeeping, you can just do your own thing and be content with a modest lifestyle. And if you do that, you'll be just okay. But for the people that want to, sign their name over, you sign your name in blood with these major labels. One way or another, you're going to have to pay. And for all the people that's out there touring in their 60s, they're not touring because they love the game so much. They're touring because they're not getting money from their music. And touring is the only way that they can keep the lights on. So, yeah, man, word from the wise, from Mr. Mos Def himself. And I agree 1000%. But what are your thoughts on Mr. Yasiin Bey saying that the music industry is exploitative? Do you agree, sir?
Of course I do. Of course,
Mhm.
of course I do. All power structures are exploitative. Um, yeah, the music industry is no different than college football before college football instituted, you know, things like name, image, and likeness and the transfer portal, allowing the players to get some of their power back for off of the history of that sport, earning billions of dollars year over, and players for the vast majority of the existence of college football not reaping any of those monetary benefits, while also being sold the idea, rather insultingly, that a free education is commensurate with their contribution to that machine. It was always exploitation, and it was never, it was always exploitation. Always. There's no one with a sound mind who can convince me that a free education is commensurate with earning millions, if not billions of dollars for the machine that is college football and these universities who make that much money off the football program.
Mhm.
A free college education is pennies on the dollar compared to that. So, I mean, the music industry, college football, hell, professional sports, it all serves to extract what it can from its labor force for as long as it can do so before they cast you aside and groom its next crop of labor force to continue on with this dynamic. So this is no different. This is not a new phenomenon. Um, as you intimated, going independent is the true route to freedom. But so many of us don't take that route because of the lure of
Mhm.
financial freedom. See, that's the thing that gets people. Like when you come up in a circumstance devoid of financial freedom, you covet it and value it very much so. And you covet it and value it very much so that you will compromise your art and your blood, sweat, and tears if you're an athlete in exchange for a quick payout. When in the long run, whatever it is that you're creating, if you hold on to it and nurture it, is worth 10 times whatever you fork it over for. But the problem is economic inequality. That's the problem. The problem is disenfranchisement. When people don't know what it's like to live that kind of reality, they will jump at the earliest and quickest and easiest opportunity to acquire it, even if it means allowing themselves to be exploited. And like I'm not, and it's a tricky conversation, right? Because I'm not necessarily trying to engage in righteous indignation, because there's even me sitting up here talking like this in front of this microphone. If I create something and somebody, we somewhat talked about this last week with T-Pain. Like, if I create something and the valuation on it is $10 million, and some large company shows up or calls me and is like, hey, yo, we like what you're doing, we'd like to buy that from you for $50 million. Am I going to turn down that $50 million? I honestly don't know. I don't know. I'm being honest. I don't know. But I also know that if I hold on to it, in 10, 20 years, my $10 million creation is probably going to be worth 500 million, so long as I don't run it into the ground and I continue to innovate and continue to put everything into it that I can. So, it's a somewhat tricky conversation to have, because I'm not trying to say I'm above it, but I also recognize why it happens. It's unfortunate, but it's something that's never going to end, because when you've created this caste system where there are different tax brackets and income brackets, and there's a wealth gap, and you have people living on one side of it and other people living on the other side of it, and certain people and entities on one side can offer you something that you covet, and you basically have to fork over whatever it is that you create to do it, but you will, because what they're offering you is something that you've always wanted. Hard to turn that down. So this dynamic is never going to go away. um Independent route, ownership, we talk about that stuff on this channel constantly. It is the way to go, but until the vast majority of the people recognize that power and don't relent on it, this will continue. Power structures are going to do what they do, even if they start off with the best intentions. You can't stop it. Like, you can't stop it. It's sad how much you can't stop it, but you can't stop it. Like, even vehicles that were meant to give power to artists, right? Just to take it back to music. I remember when Jay-Z had Title, and that was such a big deal. It was the wave, right? It was such a huge it was such a huge momentous event that this artist own this thing, that he allowed other artists to have a stake in, so that they can have some of the power and ownership over the pipeline of their music and their creations. And in 2021, what did he do? He sold it to who did he sell it to? Jay-Z no longer owns a majority stake in Title, but he remains a board member and stakeholder. In March 2021, Jack Dorsey's Square bought a majority stake in Title for $297 million. So he bought Title along with a few other people, but he was the majority stakeholder in 2015 for $56 million. And what happened? The dude who runs Square gave him a huge payday. And mind you, he's already self actualized, and he still sold it for that $300 million and didn't look back. So now the thing that was supposed to give artists some of their power in terms of the pipeline for their creation is in the hands of this large corporation, and they're calling the shots and making the rules, exploiting the hell out of these artists, probably paying them pennies on the dollar, just like Spotify. So, I have a lot of respect for artists who, as you described, don't care about the quick gain, who are content with saying, hey, man, I have a nice 4-bedroom, 2.5-bathroom house. I got 2, maybe 3 vehicles that I can comfortably pay for. I can comfortably afford my mortgage. I don't have student loan debt. I don't have credit card debt. I don't have any of these outstanding debts. And I live a great life, and I'm okay with that. I can vacation when I want. I can do things. I can move and shake in the world however I want. I'm not a millionaire. I'm not a billionaire, but I can do all that. And I still own my pathway and my freedom, because I never sold this or sold that or signed on this dotted line or agreed to this contract. I respect that immensely. But there's just far more people out here who don't value that path than those who do. And until the pendulum on that flips, these exploitative systems of control will still be able to run roughshod over everybody, whether that is artists, athletes, or labor.
Hey man, I agree, bro. And that's why I always talk about Currency, man, and how he's and why he's my favorite rapper. He's still my favorite rapper. You know. And as far as um, I be on here kicking all this stuff. And Currency, he's not the most in-depth guy. He's gonna talk about his women, he's gonna talk about his cars, and he's gonna talk about his marijuana use. But at the same time, um, he keeps it as authentic as your cousin would, or your uncle, or somebody like that, man, somebody that's just down to earth and cool and chill. So yeah, he talking about all that stuff, but at the same time, he's not telling you to go crash out somewhere. He's actually doing the opposite, you know. So he had his opportunity to sell out and do his thing, and he went that way initially, uh, joining the likes of Master P initially, and then hopping on over with Cash Money. And when he was with Cash Money, he was doing that stuff, man, talking about guns and talking about unaliving people. Not him per se, but he know people that would,
Right.
that type of stuff, bricks flipping, all that those things. And so when he was with Young Money and all of that, I was like, currency's okay, you know. But when he went independent, man, and he just was just doing him, talking about things he wants to talk about, and it wasn't that other stuff he was doing with Young Money. And
Hmm.
I was like, hey, I like this. Just keep rapping, bro. I like this. And then year after year, man, dropping multiple projects a year, just rapping and talking about his life. And I was like, you know what? This is chill as hell. And then over the years, man, I just realized that there was a large community he was building online because everybody sees him just being him. Every show he does, he packs it out. He sells merch. He sells it out. He got all the cars he could ever want. At least as far as he says on his songs, he's got all the weed he can ever smoke. The women are still coming in and out the house. That's what he wants to do. He has that happening, and he's just doing his thing, and he's content with it. He often speaks on him being content with it, and so he's living a life that other people wish they could live. And I think that's what a lot outside of changing people's lives. I think that's another thing that gets artists going. That's what makes them sign that name on the dotted line is they want to live a lifestyle too. They're not going to say that, but that's what they own. But you can live a life that's still, uh, I guess, above the norm if you just stick to your guns and just do your own thing. Don't try to contend with the major labels. Don't try to make enemies of anybody. Currency's just flying below the radar. He's not hurting nobody's pockets. He's just doing his thing and he's getting out of the way. And if you were doing that as a recording artist, you'd be doing a good job. Another guy, more contemporary, is Money Man. And Money Man, he did his thing, signing with Birdman initially, but then he bought himself out of his contract and has been independent ever since. He's been independent before that, signed because he thought he could flip that and make it do something. He saw that they were doing what they do with everybody, and he was like, "I'm buying out of this." He bought out of it, and he's just doing his independent thing again. Make multiple mixtapes a year, doing his thing, and he's living a life he wants to live. So, so long as you're content with a modest lifestyle, comparatively speaking to other artists,
Right.
you can do whatever the hell you want, man, and don't sign to these major labels. So there's a path out there for people that want to do it, and as I said, with all of these avenues for direct to consumer, for all these avenues for you to make your own type of money, sell your own merch, there's no need. And last thing I'll say is that even if you were somebody that signs with a major label, you can't just be good. You have to have something that's marketable. And nowadays, with these 360 deals and stuff like that, they're signing people who already have a following. They're
Hmm.
signing people who are already selling merch. They're signing people who are already selling out shows. They're signing people that already have 100K plus followers, you know, X amount of listeners on Spotify. These are the people that they're signing. And so they're signing people that's already on.
Hmm.
So if you already doing all of those numbers, why sign?
To get richer.
And you know what? And that's what I'm saying. So, there's only two people that do that. The ignorant or the people that want to live a diddler lifestyle.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, man. So it's hard. The narrative's out. There's so many case studies on people that went to the industry, how they got done wrong, and the young people don't have an excuse because they had cell phones since they was in elementary school. They know what's going on, and so if y'all want to sign with these people, that's all on you. But yeah, the tape is out on this. The jury is out, and if you want to sign to these people, that's on you. Mos Def, he was getting into this stuff when the jury was still out, and I think right now, he's speaking from the other side.
Yeah.
So yeah, I agree with him 1000%, man. Avoid these major labels, avoid these exploitative entities out here that are looking, because like you said, these people that's coming to you and say, hey man, we like what you guys are doing over there at the conscious approach. How about you guys approach this $5.8 million? And then you know what I'm saying? But the only reason why they're doing that is because the following, the this, the that,
Yeah.
that's already on the ground.
That you already built.
And if you're already content with a certain type of lifestyle, then there's no need to do those types of things. And like you said, so yeah, it'll do the numbers that it needs to do to pay you the life that you want to live. And if you're okay with that, if you don't need that big swing for the fences payday, that eventually one day you're gonna end up slaving away, because they're gonna own that and on everything else. It's gonna be some 360 stuff, because they do podcasters that way too. So yeah, man, stay safe out there, y'all, and hold on to yours and live a modest life. That's what I would say.
Yeah, I remember Chappelle after he left Chappelle's show abruptly and he was over in Africa. Once he got back to the States, he did an interview with Anderson Cooper, back when Anderson Cooper was still on CNN. I think Anderson Cooper left CNN, I think. But, Anderson Cooper was like, okay, well, what happened? Like, why did you leave? And Chappelle was like, hey, it was so much negativity and undue pressure. And I felt like sometimes I was being deliberately put under pressure to confuse me and to keep me working and keep me working. And he was talking about how, he built, because essentially what you're describing is what happened over there. Like he built that show, him and Neil and the other people behind the creative minds behind the show built that show into something that could be valued at $50 million. So, Chappelle was, talking about how it seemed as though Comedy Central, as the corporate entity, was trying to underscore its necessity by paying Chappelle $50 million and then stepping back and saying, all right, do your thing, handle your business. And Chappelle was like, part of the reason why I didn't like it anymore was because the show had become so lucrative, it put too much undue pressure on me to continue to do this at this rate, while the valuation would suggest that the corporation no longer needs to provide the support that it used to. So, Comedy Central essentially was exploiting Chappelle and all of the other people who were creating that stuff, to create it at an even higher level to make even more money, while also saying, well, you don't need us as much anymore. And you should be content with this money that we're giving you, because we essentially own this entity. Thus, we're paying you this $50 million. So keep doing what you're doing. And, he was like, no boss. And he ended up leaving, and he didn't care about the $50 million. He was like, it's $50 million, but I feel miserable. And I find myself coming in to work every day and asking, why am I doing this? So, I feel as though those are the types of sensibilities that a person would need to have in order to go the currency route or the money man route. But I feel like far too often these creators and people in positions to leverage something that they've built, they kind of just see the short-term gain, and they allow it to like overtake their better judgment, and they just don't have the foresight to wait out and play the long game. Because at the end of the day, what you're doing, it's why they want to give you this much money, because they see the potential. It's not a fluke that they're trying to make you work like this. There's a reason for it. So I would look at the offer that I'm being given as a gauge of what it is that I've built and what it's worth. That's all that I would use it for. Oh, you trying to give me a contract for $5 million for 12 months and release how many albums a year? Oh, that means that the music that I am putting together and the cadence for my releases and the work that I put out can be valued at that much. So I'm now going to keep grinding on my own to make it even more than that, because I know it can be worth that. But I think a lot of people, because of the economics of the situation, they just say, I will allow this to happen to me because I want to be rich. And it's like, at what point does the exploitation become a worthy enough price for your soul? And some people at the end of the day determined that it wasn't worth it, but I think a lot of people still to this day are like, I'll take that. Just let me
Yeah,
be,
it's crazy.
just let me be rich. And comparison is really the thief of joy. If you're running around saying that what you're describing as a modest lifestyle, and honestly, modest is a relative term,
Of course.
because modest for someone who modest for currency is not the same as modest for me.
Oh, it's not.
It's like I said, like, if you're able to live in a nice house on your own plot of land and you can comfortably pay all your bills and you have no debts, I don't see what's not to be proud of with that. But
Right.
there's so many people who live through their feeds and they live through the prism of comparison. And they say, if I'm not doing this, I'm not doing it at a good enough level. And if I have to sell myself out in order to get there, I'll do it. And it's unfortunate, but it truly does lead you down the road of exploitation. And, more and more people need to wake up and realize that being exploited is not worth the price of that.
Yep, 1,000, man. So, yeah, we'll see what happens out here in this world, man. I'm constantly, not really. I'm not really surprised because nowadays the people that you see signed to these major labels, they look like they ain't got no brains about them. But the artists like, I think maybe Kendrick is probably like one of the last maybe people that came out that seemed like they've got a brain. But yeah, man, back in the day, bro, it was a lot of guys that talk some real stuff. Mos Def one of them, and they had major deals. I didn't know how that worked. I was like, hey, bro, you around here talking about destroying the very system that you recorded this album on. Like, how does that work? So you don't really see too much of that anymore. You just see the Ice Spices and the NBA Young Boys.
Yeah.
So and the Kodak Blacks. So yeah, you really don't see these type of dudes doing it on anymore on a large scale. And I think the music industry learned. I
Yeah.
think they found the type of person that they can exploit.
Control. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Crazy.
Yeah, give us 20. The labels love 21
They
Savage.
love him, man.
Yeah, it's like what I said last week with them doll chicks. The industry loves that.
Yeah.
We're sitting up here saying this has to go, but the industry loves them some Asian doll, cash doll beef. Even if they ain't making no music worth any substance or anything that people care to listen to, just that environment alone is something that the industry just feeds off of.
It's disgusting.
So, yeah, it is what it is. It was definitely far less exploitative back then than it is now. It's just become an all-out free for all,
Yep.
And yeah, these corporations love to find a court jester because that's what the court jester is going to do, jest, and they're not going to do anything. They're not going to say anything against it. They'll just continue to jest.
Unbelievable.
So, shouts out to Mos Def, aka Yasiin Bey. Yeah, looking forward to that project with Alchemist, but we'll see when it actually comes out.
I'm not holding my breath, bro. Really not.